Hi, and welcome to hopefully some more geeky insight. And this time we have the legend that is Ray Wheeler. Welcome, Ray.
Hey Rich, how you doing?
I'm very good, mate. Thank you very much. We are
Excellent.
losing the light rapidly here in Blackburn, but you're probably dialing in from sunnier climates down south somewhere.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Hertfordshire's looking pretty grim as well at the moment, but at least it's warmed up. It's not -2 today, so I think we've got a whole positive 9 degrees. So
I believe actually at the point we're recording this, it's technically Blue Monday today, by the way, which apparently scientists have proven is the most miserable day of the year. Everyone falls off of their New Year's resolutions and realizes that they overspent at Christmas. But hopefully we'll sprinkle a little bit of cheer for anybody watching this on on Blue Monday. So our goal today, I guess, for anybody watching this, is just to give you some real life insights into the life of a geek, and for anyone that wants to know what Ray's life was like when he first started at Sales Geek. If you're watching this on YouTube, scroll down. We actually did this with Ray about 2 years ago when you're probably less than a year in at that point, Ray, maybe 8, 9 months in. So Ray's just had his third birthday, I believe, as a
it's coming
geek.
up
We're,
to,
we're,
yeah,
we're around
3 years.
that time. So I thought it'd be a really good opportunity for anybody who is coming through the process and looking at this, something they want to do in the near future, to hear from the horse's mouth what Geek Life is like kind of three years in. So, Ray, do you want to just give us a really, really quick recap on, I suppose, a little bit of life before Sales Geek, how you came to find us and what the early months were
Yeah,
like?
no problem. Happy to do so. So I've been in sales all of my life, in different capacities. I think I took on my first sales director role, um, in kind of my mid 20s. I'm 54 now. Sounds scary saying that, but it is true. And I know I don't look it. And Yeah, had a number of different sales director roles. I've also was then promoted to managing director for a couple of different positions as well. And ended up working across media and tech and distribution, and was VP of sales for Sony for about 4 or 5 years, and then after that was made redundant, and since then were mainly working for kind of startups and scale ups, either in chief revenue officer type roles or head of commercials or sales director roles, but nothing really kind of got my fancy after leaving Sony, and I felt like I wanted to do something completely different and new, and was getting a bit worn of going into town and traveling and commuting into London when I say into town.
That's the
And
southerner
then
thing that
it is, isn't
Southerners
it?
call London town.
That's
Anyone that lives
right.
up north, which is where
Yeah,
I live now,
that's why I thought I'd
London's
better, regardless of where you might be watching today's video from, I better just explain that one. So yeah, cut long story short, actually it was my wife that saw a local advert, if you recall, for Sales Geek, and it was for a local sales director. I thought, oh great, something in Hertfordshire would be interesting. And then of course found out that it was um, the Sales Geek franchise. And it's funny, it's not that I had anything positive or negative about franchises, but I just wasn't expecting. I thought, great, well let's find out a bit more. And then that was it. Never really ever looked back from that moment. Had a number of well, actually, I say a couple of conversations with whoever was in charge, Simon in those days of recruitment, working closely with you and Lucy. And yeah, like I say, the rest is history. I remember coming up to the bunker and meeting you and James, Denny, and but every meeting that I had, just made me think like even more excited than I was from the previous one. Had a whole bunch of videos, probably similar to anyone that's watching this video now, from people like Lisa and Darren and some of the early starters, which helped me make my decision as well. To be honest, they were just given. Now, obviously, I know those guys as friends. They first thing to vouch for is it was all true. So this is not staged. Richard hasn't paid me, although he might buy me a pint for doing this video for him. So yeah, I've been with Geek 3 years. Um, I enjoyed the journey in the first year. It was a very different year to what it was then in year two. Honestly, the last year, I don't know where it's flown by. So year three as a geek has flown by. But what's been nice is that it's been steady growth pretty much since I started. And I've learned a lot of new things. the business for me has stabilized this year. So it's a different year. And now I'm looking to obviously recruit and take the business further.
Brilliant. So when you reflect back on those, I suppose, on that first kind of 6 to 9 months in that first year, which is always, I think it's a really, A, it's a very precious time, B, it's a very scary time for a lot of people. And I think when people are looking at this from the outside, thinking of doing it, it's often the part of the journey they concentrate on the most, which is, okay, so they might have already left a job, they might be thinking of
Yeah.
resigning from a job, and it's like, okay, I'm going to step into this and have no income immediately, and that's probably the most uncertain part of the journey. So when you, I suppose, with the benefit of being 3 years
Yeah.
down the line now, when you reflect back on that first kind of 6 or 9 months, what are your reflections?
Yeah, really good question. I knew that it would take a few months to get going, and possibly even a whole year before I might even get to the point where I was earning the maximum I might have earned in any previous role. Um, so money was important, but it wasn't so important in the first few months. What was important that I was buying into something that had legs, but it was going to give me a lifestyle business choice that was going to be, much more me and enjoyable for the future Ray Wheeler. And that meant, working for myself, working with clients that I want to work with, and not going to meetings for the sake of going to meetings, and scheduling my week as I want it to be scheduled. Now, of course, in the beginning, it's tempting to say yes to everything and anything. So, in this last year, I guess I work with more clients that I want to work with. Less that I don't want to work with. I certainly don't say yes to anyone now. Um, but I've been able to, build a relatively nice business financially. Um, in all honesty, I'm better off now than I have been in any of my former roles. So I've surpassed that level this year, and looking to grow on that further. But that first 9 months, yeah, it's like it's about doing the things that you want to do and being able to make a difference to businesses that really value your input and help,
Yeah.
which is, the mantra of Geek, isn't it? It's changing the way the world perceives sales. And I thought that was a really catchy line when I first joined, but I totally get it now because of the thanks and the feel good that you get. I mean, we're not doctors, we're not saving lives. Sometimes it feels like we get
Yeah.
close to that because you see these
Yeah.
people that are really distraught because the businesses have suffered or they're in decline or whatever. But the feeling that we all get, not just me, but the feeling that we all get from helping a business that otherwise could not afford the luxury that a sales director, could give them, but to be able to do that on a fractional basis, is so rewarding. It is without doubt something I never really considered would be as rewarding as it has been. And I've had the pleasure of working with, I don't know, probably 70 different businesses, whether that's courses that a certain company might have attended, or some local sales supercharges, or some fractional sales director service. Yeah, I looked at it the other day. It's about 70 different businesses. And without shadow of a doubt, it's the thank you and the kind of feeling that you get for helping those that makes this job and the journey well worth it. Because I honestly speaking, sorry to all those former employees, but I never had that ever. Had some grumpy boards. You make them a few extra million each year, and you get no thanks for it. You get your salary, and that's it. And if you're in that space and you've had enough of that, then this is what this opportunity brings you, for sure.
And I think that that's one of the things that, and I suppose that I even reflect on that personally when I first started out. That it's hard to envisage that. I think naturally people are in that slightly sort of defensive survival mode of, okay, like you said, I'm earning X at the moment. Now I don't need all of X to survive. I can probably survive on a little bit less. So
Yeah,
everyone's got that kind of crossover point. Um, and actually, what we tend to find is that that's the main focus for people actually right at the beginning. And I get it. And I was exactly the same in his first few
yeah,
months. It's
yeah,
like I
yeah,
just need to get some money coming in, so I don't have to panic quite as much. And I think on the biggest pro on the list of pros versus cons is exactly what you've just said. And there's other things that happen that you can't imagine are going to lead you to when you do it. But
Yeah.
that fulfillment that you get from working with like real people solving real problems that really make an impact on their life, I think that is it's hard to put a value on that, but it has certainly changes how you feel. I think even in yourself and your own well-being, feeling like you're adding value. If you could you, without mentioning names, because I know sometimes
Yeah, sure.
it can be sensitive, and we work with some people in some difficult situations at
Yeah,
times
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. But could you just give some context to an example or two of some people that where you found them in a certain place and moved them forwards into a different place and
Yeah.
what the outcomes were?
Um, so there's a couple of clients that have been through similar things, and that, one is a consultancy based client, and another one, in fact, is a marketing agency I've worked with now almost since the beginning. So certainly for the last two years or so, 2.5 years. And both were at a point where they were keen to have a discussion about how they could potentially scale their business to a point that for them looked like success, but couldn't see wood for the trees in terms of how they would get there, because they were just working so hard in the business, and being like the kind of deliverers of the services that they provide to their clients. So we did what we do, and that was to look at what success looked like, and would put in some measurable goals. Um, so whether that was, in fact, it doesn't matter. We're not going to talk about any names, but one of the businesses were, probably on about 160 to 200 grand turnover that first year, and they wanted to do like another 150 grand. And this year, we'll be doing probably 500,000, and they've now got some staff, and their clients have gone from maybe 20 to 50. And those sorts of businesses are represented across many, many towns, typical SME. And we've become best mates. And, I think it started on maybe a day, and I don't know, it might have been 2 days, and then it went to a day. And both of those clients I still work with. In fact, one of them I work with 2 days a month still, because they value those days so much. But it
Yeah.
gives them a release too, to get out of the office and actually get together. We meet, halfway between where we live, and that tends to be quite the norm now for a lot of the clients that go on that journey with us. So yeah, so without mentioning any names, that's become a typical thing. There's a couple that I'm very fond of because we've been there from the beginning, but that tends to be the same thing. People, they want to get to here, they're kind of here. I said to someone the other day, Rich, it's really funny, but I one of the things I was hesitant about joining Sales Geek originally was, wow, am I really going to be able to persuade a business that knows me from, like, doesn't know me from Adam, to come into their business and trust me to then help grow and scale. And I thought, God, how am I going to persuade them? And I had a few close friends that are in different walks of life saying, yeah, that's going to be a tough one to crack. And the funny thing is, if only I knew what I knew now, which is the biggest learning for me, is that if we have to try and persuade anybody that their good business at maybe 250 grand turnover is going to be, at least 500,000 to 1 million, and we have to persuade them that's what they should be doing,
Yeah.
then run a mile, because it's the wrong type of client.
Yeah.
Out of those 70 businesses, they've shared one thing in common, and that is they all had the desire and enthusiasm to want to scale. They just needed some help, but they were open to help. And that's the thing. It's getting, there's enough companies like that, to give everyone a nice living doing what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Yeah, that's true.
But don't look for the ones that don't want help, because
Yeah.
there's plenty of them as well, and that's fine. And each to their own.
No, I'm a great believer. You're absolutely right. If you've got to talk people into that change, then you're fighting the wrong argument at that point. And actually, like you said, in terms of like the numbers, it's interesting because um, something that you're famous for at Sales Geek actually is the you're the cohort guy, right? And I think you've when I think about our mission, sorry, I always point over there when I say it because
Yeah,
it's above the units in the kitchen.
it's somewhere.
We talk about changing the way the world perceives sales. To do that, my great belief has always been that we need to make a sales education more accessible to more people. So
Yeah,
that's not about discounting and making things cheap. It's around, kind of creating products and services that people can access. And some of those services are kind of our cohorts, our accelerators. And I think it is universally accepted within the whole of the UK here that you are the master of those. Hence why you had 70 customers last year, whereas you've got a lot of geeks that might have had seven, eight, or nine, but just on retainers and not doing sort of the
Yeah,
group
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So just if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit around, how that's worked for you, how that's worked for
Yeah,
the people
sure.
that you've served as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's testimony to the content and the products that we get to sell as sales geeks, right? So obviously we talk about the fractional sales director as being one of those, and that has been probably the key offering that I've offered to clients. Um, but yeah, these sales supercharges. So obviously we become, as we are an endorsed company of the ISP, Institute of Sales Professionals, which means all of our sales training and content is widely credited, and it's so valuable that to a lot of even smaller companies like micro companies that will be local to anyone perhaps that's even watching this video. I network a lot, and I met a lot of smaller, either trades or professional one man, businesses that would never have perhaps the budget to
Yeah,
spend on a fractional sales director service, but would love to be able to learn how they can improve their process because everybody's involved in sales in one shape or another, whether you're the business owner or whatever, and no one ever really confesses to know exactly if what they're doing is the right thing. And so we put on these cohorts where normally there's between 6 and 8 local businesses. They pay a couple of £100 to come on the course, and I run them over free 2 hour sessions, normally back to back weeks. And but it's super affordable, and they get to network with six or so other people, and it's all face to face, and we literally take them through essential selling techniques and checking, some of them have a process, some of them don't even know what sales process means, and they've never heard of perhaps certain methodologies that help them do that. But it's basically giving them the most effective parts of what we refer to as the sales journey in bite-sized learning pieces that they can take away and then try. And in all honesty, that's been so rewarding for me as well, because we have a lot of fun. They're never too serious, but people take away different things from those. But I would say in many cases, just looking at the testimonials that I've received and just the social proof from all walks of different companies that have been on those, the return on investment for those clients have been huge.
yeah,
Even if they may win a couple of new bits of business that for them is worth thousands, we're talking a few £100 to go on the course. So
yeah,
it's a no-brainer really. And what's been nice since doing those, and I honestly I promised myself that I must stop doing them at some point, just because I don't know, I actually really enjoy them, but I thought,
yeah,
well, I need to grow the business in other directions. But people keep coming back, even this week. Funny enough, I think, oh, I've had 2 or 3 people from some other networking I've been doing saying, oh, these sales supercharges, are you still doing them? When's the next one? And that
yeah,
tends to be how it is now. I get 2 or 3 people asking that question. They go, oh, actually, I'll put one on. And then when I advertise it, there's probably only 3 places left because I've got 3 who've already said they've heard about it. And but that makes me happy because it means that obviously what we're doing is we're doing something right, and it's supporting those businesses that really need it more than anyone. So
Well, I say the best marketing is happy customers. So
correct.
you're creating those hand over fist. And I guess a question that I see and hear regularly actually, so it's a really good time to ask it. And I think it's super relevant because it's certainly what you do. Sometimes people, when they're trying to think, okay, step out of normal life, doing my job, and I'm going to come and be a sales geek, how do I go from being the VP of sales for one of the biggest global electronics companies to being in the room with 6 or 7 micro businesses, some trades people? how do I kind of go from there to there and add value to those guys? I suppose if you rewind the clock back 3 years ago,
Yeah,
could you have envisaged again, maybe going back 5 years ago when you were in that role at Sony, um, transitioning your skills and experience into being in that room with, one man, two man businesses, some trades guys, like
yeah, sure.
how's that happened?
It's funny, isn't it? I've never been worried about that because I was interested in exploring what the opportunity is within Sales Geek, and and our kind of main market is an SME. Okay, fine. For the YSD, it could be probably someone who's probably more 1 to 5 mil turnover type business. Um, but and everybody loves the fact that they have someone coming in and helping their business accelerate and achieve what they regard as success, whether that's doubling their income or whatever it might be. But to answer your question, coming from obviously working for Sony, um, for me it's all about personal justification and reward. And honestly speaking, I get much more reward from half a dozen businesses where the basis of what I'm giving them has come from years of experience in working for big corporates. But it's also come from working with like 70 different businesses
Yeah,
and having like that expertise in lots of different market sectors and vertical sectors and trades. um, and it's pretty much the same thing. That's what I love about what we do. When we talk about like some of the key principles, right, that when meeting a business for the first time is people buy people now. Years ago when I first went on some sales training, they taught me, I think, the Columbo close. I mean, good heavens, it makes me laugh even saying that.
just one more.
Walking through the door, just one more question, right? And all the other cheese that used to come with all this stuff in the late 80s, and people still have ties to those
Yeah,
types of sales where it was double glazing sales or car sales, and let me just ring my boss, see if I can get that deal for you, and all that malarkey. And what's nice about modern sales, it's all about people buying people and modern communication techniques, right? So as that first stage is about creating great first impressions. A lot of people that I meet, they wouldn't have necessarily had the benefit of such training. So actually, those sorts of conversations can be had at any level. If I'm a VP of sales and I'm going in to see one of the big Hollywood movie companies representing Sony, right? I still need to create a great first impression. But boy, does a business on local level as a tradesperson need to do the same, because if they do, that customer, trust me, is going to get less quotes, and they've already doubled or trebled their chances of getting that business because of the impression that they made. And then all the other things that we give them ammunition to do much better is asking great questions and listening and getting the value of what they do across in a much more concise fashion. And those things are absorbed by SMEs, I would say, even more greatly than teaching a well-oiled sales team that works for
yeah,
a big enterprise company. So yeah, it's even more rewarding, but equally there's more people looking for that help.
yeah, definitely. And I guess the $64 million question for anybody is, okay, that sounds great, but how do you meet those people and how do you get them in the room to be on the cohorts in the first place?
Yeah, no, good question. I mean, I think that was probably my question when I first
Yeah.
talked to you. And I think you said just make sure you're busy, right? Is when you first join Sales Geek, I think there has to be an acceptance that yeah, you join with you join with support, you're joining a family, so you can speak to geeks like myself up and down the country now, that have been doing it several years, and they are using tried and tested formulas, but those formulas are given to us, in the bunker up in Blackburn in that early induction period. And we recommend, don't we, that people join um, their local business communities, their networking, their BNIs, their chambers of commerce, go to the opening of a matchbox on any business level, but fill your diary with as many meaningful conversations as you can have, and as many types of events. But at the same time, if you've come from a sales background and you've had the pleasure of working with lots of different companies, ring some of your old clients, use your black book, go and have some lunches and just tell them what you're doing, because it's like someone will know someone that needs the help, that wants to move up the business. And that is pretty much all I've ever done, as you know, from day one, which is just keep yourself busy, put your effort in, but the effort is not at that point in delivery.
Yeah.
And that's where that transition, I think, happens, probably after a year, but after 6 months, you start getting a flavor for it because you get your first clients on board. And then the transition is then more about working out, okay, what marketing do I continue with? What networking events? Because you end up kissing a few frogs in the beginning, right? That's normal.
Yeah.
And some geeks will recommend certain things and others won't, and you have to do what's right for you. But when you've tried enough of those things, you'll know the things that will work, and those that are successful will know exactly what I'm talking about. And then you just, yeah, I mean, I would love to do more like networking because I don't do enough now as I did in that first year. But that's where the growth will come from. But instead of me, it will be my next hire or someone that takes one of the solo franchises in Hertfordshire, and then they can go and network where I currently don't,
Yeah.
and build the business that way. So it is an evolution, but it's yeah, that those first few months, it's more about marketing and taking your head out of corporate world. But again, that's fun, right? It's like instead of going to meetings in town in London and traveling and going for meetings for the sake of meetings, I get to go to a networking event and meet loads of people from different walks of life and just learn about what's going on out there, and that's all part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think in the interest of being, as transparent as we always can be with people, I always describe it as hard work because I guess
Yeah,
for some people it might feel that way. For me, it didn't feel like hard work either. Yes, I had to go to lots of things, but I love the people that I met. I love the stories that I heard.
yeah,
I was eating bacon rolls and drinking coffee with really nice people who had interesting stories about their own businesses. So I never found it hard work, but I would still describe it as new geek startups to say, right, you have to
yeah,
put in the most amount of work, most amount of effort at the beginning. And I guess we always try and set that expectation with people that I think if you ever want a lesson in delayed gratification, start a business.
yeah,
Because there's kind of two curves on the graph. One is the effort that you put in, which you have to front load the activity, and then there's a bit of a lag to the reward coming, and then you get that crossover point. I guess I'm curious to understand from you, kind of sitting here now, going into your fourth year,
yes.
in terms of effort versus kind of return. How does that feel versus that first year?
Yeah, it gets easier because you're not having to look for business in the same way that you do in the beginning. It's a different type of easy. Like maybe it's mentally easy because you're not worrying about, having to get to a certain amount of days or a certain amount of income. That said, you're working hard. It's not always easy because you've got lots of different clients to see. So I'm juggling now about 17 or 18 clients on a monthly basis. Um, that doesn't mean, that's 18 full days, but it floats anywhere between 14 and 15 days is probably the norm right now. And I'm quite happy with that. That gives me a nice income. But um, I still get lots of new inquiries. When we last caught up, a week ago, got a couple now that, and it's right on the level of what makes it comfortable and not comfortable. But that's great because, there'll be other geeks in the community that's happy to take on at work. And we have obviously a revenue share scheme that works, or we can, as I am looking to do now, take on my next, members of staff so that we can train them up and get them out and doing that and expanding the business further. But it's that isn't so much a risk for me anymore because I can see that actually I need to do that in order to keep saying yes to the businesses that need the support.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel great because it's another business that needs our support, and you don't want to say no because that would make me feel worse. So,
No,
you know,
yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. I'm going to come back to future plans in a second, but there's something you said then about the amount of customers that you're servicing.
yeah,
And I guess this is a subject that's very close to my heart, which is that
sure.
I think bold statement. I think the concept of job security these days is a bit of an oxymoron. I have to be honest. I think true security comes through doing exactly what you're doing now, which is you've got your income spread across probably more than the average geek. I think probably
Yeah,
for a similar amount of days, there might be other guys who've got half as many customers but create the same amount of income. But the great thing for you would probably be that if you woke up tomorrow and half of those customers disappeared, you're still keeping the lights on and keeping the bills on. Whereas, in the world of employment, you have one income and you either have it or you don't have it. It's kind of
yeah,
absolute. So I guess from a personal perspective, and I guess, just as a dude kind of in yourself, like how does that feel? I guess would probably be my question.
yeah. Obviously it feels great. Um, it means actually you can have the confidence of not saying yes to everything that you feel isn't quite right. Because sometimes, it's like in all walks of life, right? You get opportunities to work with businesses that are probably looking for the wrong thing.
Yeah,
And it just means that rather than take a risk, I can, say with experience that perhaps another vehicle for them might be better off. Um, but yeah, that financial independence and the ability to be part of something that is growing into a proper business is fabulous because you do it for you, right? And I'd never done that before. I'd not long after leaving Sony, had consulted for a few of my clients because I was in that quandary of not really knowing, where to turn next. And yeah, that's probably the closest I ever got to what we do now. But it's so different. Some of those things ended up in full-time jobs, and then they went, and then
yeah,
that tends to be what happens, isn't it? You work for a couple of clients, and it's more than a few days, a week, and then before you know it, they say, "Oh yeah, look, come and do it full time," and then you're not doing what we enjoy, which is getting to work with lots of different clients. So yeah, I wouldn't swap it for anything else. So the warning that comes with it does make you totally unemployable because you don't want to work for a single company again. And then, but why would you? And I know I said it, I think I might have said it. If I didn't, I was thinking it. But when I think I did actually allude to it that when I first started talking to Sales Geek, you and the guys, I was thinking, well, this will be a lifestyle choice because it will give me more time to do the things. Well, yeah. Do I have any more time to do those things? No, but the time that I do spend in business is much more enjoyable.
yeah,
And I still get time to have a normal life. I'm going skiing on Wednesday for a few days with my mates. So you and I were just talking earlier about 7 different weekends to different, mountain climbing things that we both were into and things and events. And so yeah, life goes on, and yeah, but it's a much better mix. It's much better than anything I've done.
awesome. And I guess another thing that you've done in the time that you've been here, you've become a very valuable member of the sort of the geek community. So I suppose we use the word tribe quite a lot. So we have an ever-growing tribe of geeks here in the UK. You very kindly volunteer some extra time as part of our franchise advisory board as well. But I'm
Sure.
kind of conscious that I'm sure part of your decision-making process to be here in the first place was probably in part that community. It was probably a bit smaller
Yeah.
when you joined. So how have you what value have you had from that kind of wider geek tribe?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I felt like almost obliged to want to give some time back. And to be fair, we don't get pestered a lot as part of that, fab team. Maybe every quarter, just prior to that, it takes up a bit of time. But the nice thing is that when I joined, and this is the same now for anybody that's thinking of, taking the plunge and joining as a sales geek and chatting to you, Richard, um, is that there was numerous people that I could turn to and have a discussion with. It is a tribe. It is like, one happy family. And I don't think I've ever had anybody that says, "Oh no, they haven't got time." They always find time, even if they're busy
Yeah,
doing X many days. And so when there was an opportunity to join the, franchisee advisory board, the FAB team, yeah, I kind of did it with open arms. And it's nice, locally, obviously we've got Phil and we've got Lee and a couple of others, and occasionally they reach out, and we're like, I do an hour with Phil, every other week, where we just catch up and help each other. And I enjoy those chats just as much as he probably enjoys learning about other things, and it's great. And that's the other thing that probably isn't talked about enough. I think when you join Sales Geeks, you've got all these other people to help and support you, and with the Fab thing, it's just allows us to do that even more. So I'm really really happy to
And
continue
you,
doing it.
the Southern crew are starting to kind of more regularly kind of meet up as well as coming to the quarterly meetings up at HQ. You guys are kind of getting your own little get-togethers together as well. Is
Yeah, that's right. So Lisa started that, obviously our geek in Essex, and I've not, I nearly was able to join her for the one they did online the other day, but I've not managed to join. I think she's put on a couple of these now. I have promised her I will turn up at one of them.
it?
But yeah, no, it's great. I think there's like 7 or 8. I think Pippa in fact has just, we've broadened it up slightly now.
You've adopted the Shropshire Geek as
Midlands as
well.
well. That's right. Yeah. But again, it's just proof that there's little mini groups outside of what we do in our quarterlies, which we both adore being part of, and I love coming up to Blackburn for those quarterly franchise meetings. But yeah, it's there's so much support, and I think when you get offered that and it helps you in your journey in that first year, I just personally feel like it's nice to be able to give back and share what's going on, because we obviously act as the in between the
Yeah.
geeks, and or we help try and do that, and the and headquarters. So no, I think it's a great thing that we had a fab team, and it's nice to be part of it. I really enjoy it.
And what's your take on the quarterlies? I'm obviously conscious that
Mm,
like we've got a couple of geeks now that are further away again than you are. But I suppose at the point that you joined us 3 years ago, there's probably only one or two other people that were a similar distance away from you. It's no short trip from Hertfordshire up to Lancashire,
yeah,
but you still really regularly make the effort to come. So what's your
yeah, it's because I love it so much, Rich, and obviously you and I get an opportunity to go and have a beer, which is always nice. But I love those things. You never stop learning, right? And obviously it's one of our core values, but it's so true. And I think just come up to each of those quarterlies with an open mind, and you come away with so much more. You learn how other geeks are doing it, and those that are doing X, Y, and Z. I come back with all sorts of notes. Hardest thing then is putting it into action before the next quarterly. But yeah, no, I know I think I've only missed a couple in my first 3 years, but I'll always try and get those, put the dates in and get up to them. There's so much value from it, but we have a lot of fun too, right? And
yeah?
it's the opportunity to meet the rest of the tribe and share learnings, and yeah, no, I love it. I think they're great. It's great, and please continue doing them because they're awesome.
To be fair, for the couple that you've missed, if there was an award for the greatest excuses for not being up Mont Blanc, well, so trying to summit Mont Blanc would be one of them. But yeah, so I guess let's kind of go future focus. I guess I think you're at a really interesting point now, which is you built real stability in your business, like you say, some predictability there. You got a
Yeah,
stable
yeah,
base of clients. I think that's as well as you've been famous for, well, climbing mountains, put cohorts and looking after lots of smaller businesses. I think
yeah,
that's
sure,
the other thing as well that we record a lot of data here at Sales Geek, and I think actually over this last year and a half, you have the lowest variance from good month to
right,
bad month. You are most consistent geek in the UK.
okay,
Which I'm sure will give you sort of the confidence of what comes next. So
yeah,
what
nice to
does
hear.
come next?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to continue doing what I've done, and obviously you and I have talked about my desire to try and bring in a couple of new smaller franchisees into Hertfordshire through our solo franchise offering. But I am almost, yeah, I'm going to start literally recruiting as we speak for somebody to come and help me expand the business further. I thought I'd found someone the other day, but not quite right. But yeah, it's exciting, and there's enough clients to support that business into the interim period until they're up to X number of days. So yeah, that's the next thing for me is recruit for this year, and
So,
see where that takes us.
so what does that look like for you? Is that looking at maybe a solo or two at the perimeters of your territory and then hiring somebody
Yeah,
directly a bit closer to home.
correct. So a solo or two would be great, and in any order. And then the next thing will be to have to take on an employee, someone who's perhaps, looking to work, 3 or 4 days a week, and have a mix of salary and the opportunity to, you know, earn a bonus related thing for whatever, how many clients that they can bring to the party as well. But yeah, to kind of start the journey off by networking at the events that I don't have the time to do anymore, and just build it out. I was talking to Peter and Davey up in, our Scottish sales geeks who've had some success in that regard, and looking at the models that they're doing in order to kind of attract people to their local franchise, and they're having, seems like, some good success with that. So that was from the conversation from the last quarterly, funny enough. So it's been on my mind to do that. So that's pretty much, if we look back in 12 months time, hopefully I'll be saying, oh yeah, I've now got, two new guys or three new guys doing that.
Yeah, I think everyone, well, not just me, but I think everyone in here is certain that will happen. And I think that's a transition in its own right, because I think it's every business owner in that first year or so is sort of the blinkers are on for customers and people that can bring you customers. And then when you kind of like have to shift those blinkers out a little bit and go, well, I still need some of those, but also, kind of open
Yeah,
to meeting people that can come and join the journey. I think even just consciously making that decision can all of a sudden you start seeing people and meeting people and getting introduced to people, and you see things through a different lens. I think even just making that conscious
yeah,
shift into it will
yeah,
help.
yeah. It's really weird as well, isn't it? I know we've talked about this before, but when you stand up at your local networking and you talk about, oh, by the way, if anyone knows someone who's looking to, who's perhaps just come out of a full-time sales gig, or they've been a sales director, I'm now looking to take someone on. Um, it just proves that the whole model and the whole thing is even more successful. It just, I'm sure, some of the looks and some of the conversations that I get is, oh, things are going good. Yeah. And it's almost like, all right, yeah, when's your next sales? It's like, when's that next course? Yeah, it seems to be working really well. Yeah. So it's all good. It's that kind of, well, we talked about that scarcity thing, isn't it? But you just almost become even more attractive when people
Yeah.
hear that, so not that that's why you do it, of course, but it just, for anyone that's considering doing this, you've got all these, positive things to think about and look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the reality of it is, although I absolutely get the need that it has to work financially for people, but the reality is, if you move that to one side, once that just looks after itself, what we do is fun, and I think
Yeah,
naturally becomes attractive for other people to want to come and do this thing that is fun and very
yeah.
fulfilling, like you said earlier. So you mentioned then about where you want to be 12 months from now, but if you kind of look a little bit further ahead, kind of long-term goals, what does it look like for the business?
Good question. I mean, it's really funny, right? So when you first join, we signed what, a 5-year deal, and I think fine, like 5 years seemed like a long time at that point, and it's coming to five, and now we're obviously Danny and I and you, talking about extending that to 10, and I can't see myself ever wanting to step down to a point where I'm selling the business, but I'm building it up to a point where if I wanted to sell that franchise at some point, I could. So I'm not disguising the fact that that could be a conversation at some point in the further future. But I think with the model that you've been the founder of and created, it gives us all the opportunity, and myself, like, to then say, fine, well, look, if I had two or three other people working in the business, I could step down to 2 days and do partial retirement. So there's lots of,
Yeah.
what I like about it is not having to have to answer your question. That's what I like about it, because I've got all the different
I
opportunities. So I can
love
say,
that.
well, thanks to you and thanks to what we're doing together, actually, I don't have to answer the question, because if I decide I want to get out, I can. If I
Yeah.
want to stay in and have, because I really love doing what I do. And I was saying to my wife, Lucy, the other day, you know, even she could give up when she sells a business. She could come and do this with me because she's trained to do this sort of thing. We could do it like a couple of days each or something. Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
fun, right? She
Same
can have
days or
the
different
clients.
days?
Huh?
Same days or different days?
No, yeah. Oh, you've sussed my master plan because you're saying I'm playing golf. But yeah, in all seriousness, I think the further beyond would be, yeah, to then maybe even look at how I use the business that I build up to kind of get more, you know, even more towards that lifestyle work, um, you know, balance. And but that's the beauty of what it gives us.
Yeah.
You know, if I
I,
can
I,
get to the same turnover as I have been and beyond that with the people that are working for me, happy days, right? It's that's the opportunity that it gives us.
yeah. And I think what you've articulated there brilliantly is the freedom of choice. And I think that's the again another thing which is hard sometimes, I think, for people that are looking at doing this, because I think it's really hard to not get focused on that first kind of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months,
Yeah,
and be transfixed on the numbers. But the the difference in feeling of I was trying to explain this to somebody not that long ago, that like it actually alters your whole existence in terms of the I think when you're working, you're employed, it's a bit more kind of like you either are or you aren't, and
yeah,
you're
yeah,
in or you're out. Whereas when you kind of step into this world and you're running and owning your own business and you're building that and you're growing it, and it's generating revenue with you in it, and then whether you not in it as much, and it's so much choice available to people at that point to keep it and still earn money from it, to sell some of it, all
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
There's so much choice available to people, and I think that's the I think for me that is the greatest gift of business ownership. Is yes, it's hard at times, and yes, you have to put a lot of effort in, but the amount of choices it gives you life in terms of life choices is
yeah,
just night and day.
yeah. In fact, that's a really important point because actually, one thing we've not discussed is when you join, you know, you have obviously that cost for being part of that franchise. But you need to be quickly reminded, as I would if anyone was talking to me about the opportunity, that it is totally an investment
Yes.
because, you know, it's not a cost that, you know, you can do something with that at some point, you know. And I would argue, you know, the value in a business once you've been running it several years with regular, repeatable business and clients and an infrastructure, and you know, the value of that's only going to be greater than what it was when you know you purchased your patch for whatever it was, you know, 3 years ago. So yeah, it's you never lose that. It's an investment, and you make more money from it. So
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, listen, one last question from me, and then we'll let you go. I guess any words of wisdom to anybody watching this video? They've had a chat with the guys at HQ. They've read the prospectus and kind of looking at this, and they're not sure. What would be your sort of final words of
yeah,
wisdom?
grab it with two hands and do it, and don't procrastinate. By all means, you know, chat to many geeks, check as many geeks as you can. You know, do whatever due diligence you need to do. But take it from myself, it's an awesome opportunity. Love being part of our tribe, love the clients that I work with, and you know, to answer your question, just say yes, don't overthink it, you know, and you know, yeah, put a few quid away to, you know, live off for the first few months. I think that's really important.
Yeah,
One of the things, best bits of advice someone gave me is don't put yourself under immediate amount of pressure. Think, oh God, I've got to find my first, you know, few days in month one. You know, give yourself 2, 3 months to kind of get your feet under the desk and, you know, get out to your local market and build it up. And yeah, like I said, never look back. Best thing I've ever done.
I think that's very sage advice. I have to say, I think very very sound in terms of people. It's getting that balance for me of being smart, so having some runway. I always encourage people to have a few months worth
Yeah,
of
yeah,
runway,
yeah.
but also, the procrastination thing. I think anybody can convince themselves to not do anything. Like it's really easy to talk yourself out of stuff, and I think sometimes the longer we spend thinking about not just a business thing, but a challenge. You like to take on a challenge. Me too. But if I'd have spent any more time thinking about running a marathon, I never would
Yeah,
have run
right.
one by now. Sometimes you just got to close your eyes and step in. But Ray, I think that's been really, really insightful, mate. It's been great to catch up. I think
Yeah,
anybody who
likewise.
wants to look beyond, that first kind of 6, 9 months, you give them some really good insight into terms of where you're at now and what the future looks like. So thank you
Perfect.
very much. If anybody wants to reach out to Ray, you will find him either up a mountain, in the bar, or on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with Ray and watch his growth journey over the next 12 months, see as he grows his own tribe there in Hertfordshire. But Ray, thank you very much for your time, mate. It's much
Pleasure.
appreciated.
Cheers, Rich.
Thanks, buddy.